What about that intro, Jack?
You got the law books in front of you. Absolutely love it. You got
It's
to
a
lay down the
courtroom.
law beforehand. You
This
got to
is
make
a
sure that they're there.
courtroom. Welcome to Judge Jodi, Paxton Road's Premier League Player Ratings show, guys. Joining me tonight to break down the Wolves' performance. As you can all see, we've got Jack Haneke from Flat Cap Euro Talk back again. Jack, how you doing?
Doing good today. Nice to see that, the rest of the Premier League is helping out Spurs, with some results after we
Yeah,
just, mix our kind of our little 1-0 kind of scraper,
I
sort of not so bad, seeing how other teams
know.
are sort of struggling as well.
It's been a good weekend. I can admit that, and apologies to people who are watching the Newcastle City game. I know there's a game on at the moment, but this is the place to be. Like you want to be here if you're a Spurs fan. You don't want to be watching that game. So thanks for being back, Jack. What are your thoughts on yesterday? What were you thinking?
Mm.
I mean, yeah, it's probably a lot to get through. I think today when we go through the players, but yeah, what are your overall thoughts, really?
I think I put out like a nice, kind of efficient sort of tweet, yesterday. I think kind of summarized my thoughts, which is,
Hmm.
as much as that was a painful game, as much as that was, one where it never really felt, easy, you kind of look at it. I think most Spurs fans expected us as well as they wanted us to get at least 7 points,
Hmm.
out of 9 for those 3 games. I think a lot of Spurs fans probably would be like overjoyed if we had got 9 out of 9, but I
Yeah.
think that, the bare, I don't even know if the bare minimum, but like, the levels that we were looking for, I think was 7 out of 9 points, in those games.
Hmm.
And I think we kind of got it in the fashion that we sort of expected us to. We
Yeah.
absolutely tore apart, Southampton like we wanted to. It
Yep.
was a struggle against Chelsea. We always knew it was going to be a struggle going in. And then with Wolves, like just despite them being Wolves, they've always been, a difficult team for everybody,
Yeah.
not only us. They're a difficult team for everybody. Look at how many goals they conceded last season. They're
Yep.
that team that loves to dominate possession but do nothing with it,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
they're a very odd, sort of customer. And I think we handled them in a way that probably I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but a team that's really challenging for something kind of would, which
Mhm.
is like you kind of deal with the blows, you deal with the pressure, and then you just scrape on by. Most teams sort of scrape on by against Wolves. Not many
Yeah,
really, tear them apart. So
and this
I'm
season especially, I
pretty
think, with
happy.
that midfield, right, that they've got there.
Spot on.
So,
I'm for the most part, despite it
scared.
being 1-0, and I love a 1-0. It's one of those that can feel really good the next day, especially
Yeah.
considering, like I said before, with how all the rest of the results are going.
Mhm. 100%. And I think Conte said yesterday in his post-match interview as well around the fact that Southampton, Chelsea, and Wolves were the three teams that we lost drop points against last season as well
Yeah,
when he was in
spot
charge.
on.
And we didn't lose a game against them. So I think they're the kind of games that if you can like tick the box and at least not lose those games that we lost last season, then try and win the games we won. Then like
Spot on.
that's what you want to do. So 100%. I think in terms of the match for me, like, we'll get into it and we'll talk about the players, but yeah, I think we all know it was a game of two halves. Like first half 100, like it was just dire, right? It was not the place we wanted to be at. Just all the different various Spurs groups and everything I was involved in, like just the
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't good.
I
It
sent a few tweets. I remember sending a few tweets, mid game. I remember thinking, one stage, Nathan Collins was, single-handedly keeping Wolves in that game, with all the
yeah.
blocks he was making. And at certain moments, I was thinking, like, are we like West Ham now, where we're just relying on set piece goals, in any situation? So yeah, I know how you feel.
Yeah. But I mean, we got into it. I think, that we can't, we got to give the Wolves side credit, right? Like what we were saying, I think they've got I think one of the best midfields in the Prem at the moment. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to be clipped up for saying that, but like, I think they've got
Neves
a pretty
looked near world
stacked.
class yesterday. I thought he
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
close to world class. He was sensational. And Joao Matinho is sort of ageless, in the way that in fact, I don't know what you think, Jody. I know we're getting, but I think it's a worthwhile question. But I feel like the moment they took off Matinho, the easier it sort of
Mm.
became for us. I don't know about you.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah, no, that we got to give those guys credit, right? Like it was. I think that they're going to do some pretty damaging stuff to a lot of teams this season. I think we've been very lucky with playing teams at a certain time. I think getting kind of hard teams out of the way at the beginning is
Yeah,
has been good for us. So
you're right.
yeah, no, I think it was good, and then obviously we've got the point or the 3 points, and that's what I've named the show, getting the points on the board because that's what we did. It wasn't pretty, but we did it. So
Get it done.
get it
Exactly.
done.
Just get
I've
it
said
done.
before, like you just want to get as many points on the board before the World Cup, and like 7 points right now, I think I'm not going to scream about it. So
Hmm.
yeah, right. So shall we get into the ratings, Jack? We've got quite a lot to get through.
Let's
We've
do
got
it.
quite a lot of players to get through tonight. Guys, if you are just joining, please like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate everything that you do to us, do for us, and just giving us a like and subscribing to the channel really helps us out. So thank you so much for being here. Please put your ratings in the chat as well. We really, really love to hear what you guys have to say. We're a whole community here, and we want to know what you have to say about the game as well. So, with that, let's get into the show. So I'm going to share my screen here, Jack. We're going to bring it up. All right. So we've got Hugo. Always starting
Love the
with
new
Hugo.
Hugo pick. Love
Love
it. Better
it.
than last year's. Better than last year's, in my
You
opinion.
know what? When I was going through these pictures, they're all a lot more. So last season, I don't know if anybody noticed, but they're all very smiley, very happy, very kind of like casual. This season, they're all very stern. There's not one person smiling. They're all proper like, let's do this. They're Antonio Conte
Passport
photos.
photos.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Love it.
we're gonna win the league kind of photos. I mean,
Love
I
that.
don't think that, but that's what they need to think.
Love
So,
that.
right, let's get into it. 7 and a 7, Jack. You want to go
Hmm.
first? You want me to go first? I don't mind.
I don't really know. I think we'll probably, kind of say more or less maybe similar things. I don't really know if he had too many huge moments to deal with exactly. Like there were actually some really crucial blocks that I think
Mhm,
would have then led to maybe Hugo having to make, a big save. But, we'll get into those blocks, made by our defenders later. But I feel like Hugo, he sort of felt like he had a lot to deal with. I feel like after we left that game, we were all like, whew. But like Hugo didn't really exactly deal with any huge moments or shots. I felt like he had a lot
mhm,
of scary ones that just went right past his post or ones that, hit kind of, the frame of the goal, sort of that seemed scary, but he didn't exactly make any flying acrobatic saves, at any stage. But
mhm,
the reason I gave him a 7 personally instead of just a 6 is just because I thought he was actually really good in possession that game. I didn't really see any shaky moments from him. Normally, I'm kind of critical of, Hugo in possession. I think he is someone that could be kind of targeted, like we saw Edouard Mendy, kind of make a
mhm.
mistake today. I feel like Hugo has that in him as well, but he actually looked really calm in certain
Yeah.
moments in possession. And we played some pretty sketchy passes to him at certain moments to get us out of pressure, as you need to do. And I think he actually handled it really well. And had he maybe made a really spectacular save, if he was given the opportunity, should I say, to
Mhm.
make a great save, then I would have given him like an 8.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, I think for me, I agree with everything that you're saying. It was another very quiet day for him. I think it was 3 saves for him, but they were nice saves. Like I remember the one off eight Nuri. I think I was really impressed with that.
That's true. That's true.
So, and I think I gave him a 6 or a 6.5 last week, and I felt a little bit bad for that. So, there's no bias here, but I just thought, like, the guy did well with what he was up against. There wasn't a lot to do for him for me, but with what he had, the 3 saves he had, I think he coped really well with it. And you'll probably see a similar theme like on the back line from me in terms of the scores. So, I thought
Mm.
that 7 was pretty deserving for.
Speaking of themes, I must say, just to disappoint everybody, I'm kind of anti-decimal, kind of
Yeah.
on
Yeah, I
ratings of
noticed that when
anything.
you sent them through to me. Yeah,
I'm
I
kind of I
noticed
know like a lot
that.
of what do people say? Oh, amateurs, that's what amateurs do. I think it's the opposite actually. I find it that you sort of get away with the decimal. I feel like not
Yeah.
everything in life is really a decimal. It's, kind of one way or the other is how we often, especially as humans, we look at things very polar, and
Mhm,
so
mhm.
I sort
Yeah.
of am like, if it feels like an 8 more than it does a 7,
Yeah,
might
yeah.
as well might as well argue that it's an 8. Don't just say it's a
Mm.
7.8. Don't
Oh,
just
it's the
say like,
you're saying it's the lazy way, Jack. Is that what you're
I
saying to me?
I find it just to be a bit more boring, maybe. I don't even know if it's lazy. I just find it to be a bit more boring because then
Oh,
it's like, what really is like a 7.8,
yeah,
at the end of the day? I don't really know.
yeah.
I'd rather just say, you know what, downgrade them to a 7. It was more of a 7 anyways. And I'm just, I don't know,
All
just to
right.
disappoint everybody. I'm not that sort of, person, not a decimal
Fair.
guy.
Fair call. I do decimals, so
No
you
worries.
might
No
see a
worries.
few happening throughout here. I don't think I did that many today, but
I'm
when I
okay
get
with the
to that
point
more,
fives. I'm okay with the point fives. I don't like the
it's
8.3s
not
and
your
things
thing.
like that. Not my thing.
Yeah.
Not my
Oh
thing.
no, I'm a point 0.5 kind of. I mean, we don't do the we
Like
don't.
it. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Just a comment from Juice Nuts. Hi, Juice Nuts. Thanks for being here. Jack has hair or had hair, a haircut.
It
Sorry,
often hidden the hair, but
you had
it
a
does
haircut.
exist.
Sorry, you have had a haircut, and it looks
I
lovely.
think the
Looks
haircut stays around this length, for the most part, but I think it's so rarely seen that, it often looks like
yeah.
maybe it is a haircut. So yeah.
Oh, it's a very lovely haircut. It's very nice, Jack. Oh no, this is Bobby K. Jack has hair. So
There we go. There we go. But
everybody's
yes.
noticing. Everybody's noticing today. So nice one, Jack. All right, let's move on
I
swiftly
was
with
gonna
that.
say, I have said this before. The times I don't wear the flat cap are usually on the channels that I'm a bit more
Yeah.
comfortable with. I feel like I can kick off, the shoes, sort of channels, just be a bit more relaxed. So that means the flat cap comes off. Ironic.
Yeah, exactly. It's a well, I don't know. It's a courtroom, Jack. I don't know if you can let
Right.
let your hair down too
I don't
much.
even know if I'm allowed to wear a flat cap in the court. Maybe that might be against the rules.
Yeah, right. Let's move on. Let's move on. So Davinson Sanchez stepping in for Romero, 6 and a 7. Do you want me to start with this
I
one? The
think you should
7.
go first. Yeah, you should
Yeah.
go first.
You know what? I think he had a really good day, personally. I mean, obviously there were a few mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Just before half time, obviously there was a bit of a slip up there. But I think everybody was pretty scared seeing him on the sheet. I think we all knew what was going to happen when we saw the Romero injury, kind of midweek, and we knew that Sanchez was going to come in. But I think he was holding it down. Like he was for us at the end of last year. I think he was clearing the ball well. I think he was like doing some really good stuff up against Guedes or Guedes. Can't pronounce that name. Apologies. But you know what? I think he was the one of the better ones in of the defenders on the day. I personally thought he had a good day. I think I remember at halftime I was thinking, you know what, Sanchez is he's doing all right for us. Some of the others maybe not so much. So yeah, I think other than that kind of blip before halftime, I think he did all right. So I'm going to give him
Yeah.
a 7.
Yeah, I kind of can't really disagree with anything that you said there. He even made, some pretty good blocks, at certain stages,
Yeah,
I believe. And what we
3
know
tackles.
Sanchez, yeah, and what Sanchez has always been good at, is sort of making those recovery, kind of challenges, I think, and, in certain stages. He's not always the best. I think if someone's running right at him, if you know what I mean, the
Mhm.
difference is like often when he's sort of like tracking somebody running in behind, he seems to always make really, pretty clever sort of challenges to either make a block or sort of kind of get us out of those moments when you are coming up maybe against a pretty pacey sort of kind of forward. And I feel like he helped us out in a few occasions in that. It's just there are moments when I thought he actually got in Emerson Royale's way and he sort of kind of
Mm,
complicated, moments. And I think we often just say this with Sanchez, he'll have an exceptional challenge in 1 minute and then the next one he'll look pretty foolish and he'll look pretty, kind of shaky. And that's what I think I described the performance as I think he didn't really exactly do anything that I think led to us probably losing the game, but he didn't exactly do too many moments that filled me with a ton of confidence, about him. So I
mm,
think that's why I would put him as a 6. Then again, this could be typical. Let's say Romero misses the next game or we don't play Romero the next game. I could see Sanchez having a much better performance than he
mm,
did, against Wolves because I think he did that last time out as well, where he comes in, kind of puts in like a 6 or 7, kind of like rating, like you just said, and then, the Arsenal game came
yeah.
up where he played exceptional, against Arsenal and he was unbelievable. And I could see that happening where he gets another game, he's kind of warmed up, maybe less of the, the tense, kind of anxious energy, is gone. feels a bit more comfortable, and then he might have, a better performance. But I think a 6 is fair,
Yeah.
to him. A 7, I think, is, maybe more considerate of some of the things that he did do in the game, for challenges. But I think I don't know. There's still moments when I thought he gave me a bit of a, some sketchy sort of kind of moments defensively.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't agree because I gave him a 7. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I think a couple of people, so Bobby Kay is saying a 6 as well for Sanchez. I think he said he gave the ball away a few times, but he was solid defensively. David's saying he's an 8. So yeah, I mean, we all have our opinions. So I think what you're saying and your reasons for that are very, very valid. So thank you for that, Jack. I'm going to move on now. Let's
I'll have
move
maybe more
to,
explaining to do on the next one. Who
yeah.
knows?
I'm sure we've got a lot of players to get through. So Dyer, we're agreeing on Dyer. You want to go on Dyer, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I don't really I feel like he made some nice blocks from what I could recall. I didn't have, the best sort of angle, watching on my laptop in this one instead of, a nice big, kind of, sort of monitor screen. But from what I can tell, as I saw Dyer make some good blocks, I'll kind of, quickly transition though here into what I thought he improved on in this game. So maybe there's a lot of bias that I've given to this rating. I thought he did
Mm,
a much better job at moving the ball quickly.
mhm,
Something that I feel like we've really been critical of, and I know David is really critical. David Harris is really critical of
mhm,
Dyer for this. Is like taking 6, 7 touches on the ball when it's really just not needed. Just please
mm,
just pick out a pass. And I feel like he overplayed a bunch of passes. Reasons we call him moon boots. From time to time. But still, there were ones where he picked out passes on the ground or he picked out passes on the floor that were kind of done with a bit more zip, a bit more kind of intention, and kind of, directness and progressive, sort of play. And something I feel like we've been critical, or at least I have, of Dyer in the past. I think
mm.
he's could be better in
Yeah.
possession, especially given he used to be a midfielder. I think he
Mhm,
could
mhm,
show a bit of that range a bit more often and that bit more of that urgency like a midfielder would. And I thought he did that, this game. So his long passing, I agree, was terrible, but I actually
yeah.
thought his passing on the floor, if you guys recall, was actually a lot better this game. There are a lot of times when instead of just picking out Sanchez, he played it to Emerson. There are a lot of times
Mm,
when instead of
yeah.
picking out
Yeah.
Davies, he played it all the way to Perisic. And there are
Yeah.
moments when he would try to
Yeah.
pick out Kane, on the
Yeah.
floor as well. Instead of just playing the sideways pass, he was going for that, extra, kind of bit of danger. And just something that I noticed he improved on. Then again, I feel like all I'm kind of saying is he improved on something. So I probably would lower it down to a 6, maybe.
Well, I think that maybe that's what David's. I don't know if he's commenting about you or me, but he's saying, look, talking about, yeah, your score against
Yeah.
considering
I
Sanchez. I
think I would
don't know
lower it down to a
about
6,
that,
David, because
yeah.
same things I kind of criticize Sanchez for, or kind of similar things I'm kind of, but yeah, I agree with you, David. I think I'd lower it down to a 6 upon reflection.
Yeah, and Bobby Kay giving Dyer 12, best defender ever. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think it
What
was the
did you
best day
notice? Like, what did he do in this game that
yeah,
maybe warrants a 7?
it wasn't the best day, and maybe maybe I'm being, I don't say there's bias or anything in this courtroom, but maybe for me, like, it was just a I think he was coping well with that Romero. It definitely wasn't his best day ever, and I have given Dyer some better scores than a 7. So I'm thinking, like, based on previous games, for me, it wasn't the best game, but it wasn't, the worst game for him. I think for me, he's really important. I think when we have Sanchez playing, because I think he can really direct Sanchez, and I think he does a really good job, in that leadership role, especially being able to work really well. I think when Sanchez is on the pitch, because I think those two really, they have a lot of good, history, and they work really well solidly together, I think. So I think he played okay. I don't think it was anything sort of impressive, other than the fact that I think he held the back line down well. So, for that regard, maybe it was a 6 as well for me. I think a 7 is a pretty decent score. So I could probably go down to a 6 for me as well with Dyer, because I don't think he did anything overly impressive, other than the fact that, he held sort of that back line, and um, you know, did his job.
There were some incredible blocks, I think, made just by each of our 3 defenders. I actually think it was more Sanchez and Dyer, if I recall, in this game, that were just some very crucial blocks made by defenders right in our own box. where those balls, they kind of just popped up to Geddes, they popped up to Potence, and someone just, you always saw one of our back three just throwing their body right in
Yeah.
front of it. And it always seemed to just like make those Wolves players, just panic a little bit or snapshot it, a little bit. And had they not done that, I think they would have scored. I think Wolves probably deserved to score, at some stage, but
Mhm.
that sort of last minute defending doesn't
Mhm.
warrant sevens or eights, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it
Yeah.
kind of took them off, a bit. And I kind of, maybe being the nice guy that I am, want to give Dyer
Well,
and
yeah,
Sanchez a bit
that's
of
what I
credit, for that. I think they made
yeah.
some nice blocks and they made some sort of nice last minute, sort of pressures and challenges that at the end of the day got them the clean sheet, in
Yeah,
my eyes.
exactly. Clean sheet, guys. Clean sheet. Just a big up to the Irish Hotspur. We got in the comments here, nearly fell off his chair when he saw the
Too much
Sanchez
Sanchez love.
comments.
Too much Sanchez love in his eyes. But we'll go on. We'll go on.
Oh, thanks for being here, David. Right, let's move on. Let's move on. We're going to move on to Ben Davies. Sixers again. Well, not again, but Sixers. We're doing the same here, Jack. I don't have too much to say about Davies, to be honest. I think he was defensively, he was good. I think, I think in the first half, I think he was looking pretty good when a lot of the others weren't, potentially. I think it was okay. Not one of his best performances either. And I know, he was involved in like battles up against Nunes, and he did well. Like, it wasn't great for him, but he didn't do anything terrible either. I think for me, I'm just going to go solid like 6 for Davies. What do you think?
I feel like I actually now, upon reflection, might lower Davies to a 5, but I think again the clean sheet gives him a 6.
Passing was poor.
Just
She's nuts is
I thought,
reminding us.
yeah, I thought like there
Yeah.
was so many. I said this out loud, Jody. Like, gosh, I feel like Longley would have made that pass because there's so many
Yeah.
moments where
Yeah.
Davies found himself in good, positions, and he was going for that kind of dink pass over the top, like we've seen Longley go for, and he
Mhm.
missed every single one of them, kind of like how Eric Dyer sort of missed all of his, as well. But it was sort of frustrating because I think in Davies's case versus Dyer's, like Davies, I thought was actually in really good positions, to make a good pass, and like maybe less of an excuse, to misplace it. Whereas like Dyer wouldn't really give him that. I just feel like Davies, there's so many moments where I thought Longley would have probably made that, pass that would have broke the lines, would have kind of got us going, would have, been that incisive pass that would have led
Yeah.
to a goal. And there were plenty of runs I actually saw, made by Kane and Son. I know Son, we'll get on to later, but just felt like Davies, yeah, wasn't the best in possession, that game.
Mhm.
And I don't really recall him making as many defensive challenges as Dyer or Sanchez. I don't recall him, maybe being as involved defensively. I think it was more Dyer and Sanchez's clean sheet than it was Ben Davies's. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I would lower it to a 5 if I could, actually.
Yeah.
But I think
Bobby
that'd be
K's
harsh because it
agreeing.
still is a clean sheet. Still is a clean sheet.
Yeah, and that, I mean, so for me, that's the challenging thing when you're doing this, is that when you do get the clean sheet and there are no goals conceded, then is it, do you rate them up or not? But I do think that you do need to rate a player on the entire game. So I think some of these comments here are definitely valid, and opening my eyes up to potentially should I lower these ratings. So thanks, Bobby and Irish Hotspur, and everybody else for your comments. But let's move on. Emerson Royal. 6 and a 6. Here we go again, Jack.
You should go first because I'm a
Yeah.
professional Emerson apologist. So you should go first.
I think defensively, it was a pretty okay game for him, apart from a couple of issues he had there. I think I think he was actually holding it down pretty well in the first half. I remember taking a few notes down about him in the first half, saying that it's not terrible compared to the rest of the team. I remember a nice play with Kane and Son, I think, in the second half as well. I just think with Emerson, it is his lack of decisiveness at times. I think that really lets him down, but I do think he's improving. I just, I do know that it looks like he wants to be there. He wants to fight for us as well when he's playing for us. He's Spurs through and through, I think, from what I've seen. And yeah, I just think that it wasn't the best game and it wasn't the worst game. So I think it's probably deserving of like more than a 5 for him yesterday for me. But what do you
His
think?
best game, his best game was obviously against Southampton. Against
Yeah.
Chelsea, I think that was his worst, in possession. I thought he was
Yeah.
defensively solid against Chelsea, but in possession, he was really poor. I actually thought against Chelsea, like it's so poor that I knew he was better than that even,
Mhm.
and then I think he kind of showed that at least in this game. He wasn't as poor, in possession. What I do like about Emerson is that you mentioned is that he's showing that defensive solidity. I think there was a
Mm.
bit of a really unfair narrative about him last season. People are
Yeah.
saying he's not
Yeah.
even good defensively either. I'm like, if you watch him, he is good defensively. Just
Yeah.
don't, watch it, with kind of biased, eyes. Just
Yes.
watch
Agree.
how he sets himself up defensively. There are very few players that I can recall, if not really any, that have like torn apart Emerson left and right, chopping
Mhm.
him up like we just saw Alan St. Maximin, doing, like we've seen,
Mhm.
even today, Brendan Aronson just tearing apart Koulibaly every which moment, that he could. Emerson, that doesn't happen to him, just simply doesn't. Like he finds a way to get stuck in against pretty much any opponent. His problem is obviously going forward. But in
Yeah.
this one, he
Yeah.
was sort of okay. David mentioned this in the comments. My last thing here is that I've noticed is that there is this great
Picking up with Kulu.
relationship developing
Yeah.
between him and Kulu, where it
Mhm.
seems to be like Conte's taking something from Guardiola's system, where he's actually making the winger stay really far out wide, and the fullback comes inside. In this
Mhm.
case, it's just Emerson is the one that comes inside. Perisic likes to stay out wide, but
Yeah.
Emerson actually comes inside. Kulusevski keeps the width, and it's really easy for
Mm.
Emerson because then Emerson, instead of being trapped on the sidelines, he can actually find a way to, either play a pass into a midfielder or he can make that, easy pass to Kulusevski. Kulusevski has all that room to work with, and then he
Yeah.
puts in those delicious crosses. And it seems like
Mhm.
Emerson, like you said, not only is he Spurs through and through, not only is he, hardworking, but he seems to be well coached right now. Like he's obviously listening to Conte's tactics and he's clearly doing what Conte is telling him to do, which my last little
Yeah.
point here is maybe
Yeah.
why Conte gives him such a, a standing, kind of hug and everything is I think he just does his job.
Yeah.
He's such a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10
Yeah. Yeah.
player every game.
He is, isn't he? And I think I might have given him an 8 once when he back in my heyday last
But
season
like I
when he
said,
scored a goal or
professional
something.
royal apologist,
But
professional Emerson
yeah,
apologist here.
I agree with you in that I think a lot of people, and I've definitely been guilty of it myself, like giving him a tough time. And I think the guy, he's not the best right wing back that you've ever seen. That's definitely clear. But
No, he's
I
not a
think for
natural.
what we what we have right now, and I think he's doing the job. So yeah, six for yesterday, and keep it up, please, Emerson.
Mm.
All right, Perisic. Oh, 8 and yeah,
Do you want to go
we're
first again on
definitely.
this one?
Yeah, I will. I will. You probably got more to say about him, but I mean, for me, just first thing I want to say is fantasy points. Guys, get this one in your fantasy team if you haven't already, because I've definitely got some good points from him already,
Nice.
and he doesn't start every game, so at least he started yesterday, so that was good. And he definitely bumped up my points, so I was very happy about that. So
That
very
feels
happy to
good.
see him start. I think he definitely started out slow as well as everyone else, but I think for me, I think he was man of the match. I think for me personally, I think as you can see from my score, I don't think it gets any higher than this. Sorry to spoil the show, people. But yeah, I think, that awesome cross to Kane in that first half. I think, obviously, the assist to Kane's goal in the second. Everything he was doing yesterday, really, when he
Hmm.
fully came into the game, I think he showed us, who he is, why he's there, why he has that experience, and I think you can really tell like this guy's something special and he can do some good things for us. So I think I was a little bit worried when he went off. I think he was maybe holding his calf a little bit. So I really do
Yeah.
hope he's okay. So please, Perisic, Ivan, I hope you're okay. So big love to you, and please be okay and recover well. But yeah, for me, I think he was awesome yesterday. Um,
Yeah, I think well summarized. That flicked on header was absolutely gorgeous. To Harry Kane, still kind of like almost like Højbjerg's goal against Chelsea. It's sort of like,
yeah,
regardless of how, even I think Perisic had a good game, regardless of that assist. It's kind of one of those moments where you're just like, you just need somebody to kind of clutch up and sort of, find it within themselves to make that perfect pass, make that perfect shot,
yeah,
or finish or whatever it is. And I think
yeah.
Højbjerg did something similar against Chelsea while not maybe having a great game. I think,
Mm,
against Chelsea. he sort of clutched up and got us that equalizer when we needed it, desperately. And I think Perisic did that with that flicked on header there, where we were looking dangerous from set pieces. We were putting in some really dangerous, balls, but no one was really winning the header convincingly. No one was really, getting it perfect there. And he finally did for us. And he also looked really good in possession. You can see how dangerous he is, in possession, because he can go right, he can go left. He can put in a really good ball with just an inch of, kind of wig room or kind of a gap. He can do it with either foot as well. And then on top of that, we were talking about how good, Emerson is defensively. You kind of think about it like that sort of makes sense with Conte to have one sort of defensively solid, sort of kind of maybe player on.
That's exactly what I think.
And then Perisic is the free flowing attacking one on the other. And it makes complete sense. So, but you well summarized that. That's the only thing I would add.
And I think that's definitely what I've heard a lot of other people say in terms of, we can kind of get away with Emerson not being, great on the right when we do have Perisic on the left, and we do have, talent on the left. Cess is also, he's got talent there. So I think, I have heard other people say that we don't need to, regardless of what us as Spurs fans think, and I'm there with you all saying that we need two massively talented right and left wing backs, but I think we can definitely get away without having them both. And I think with what we've got on the left, it definitely works. So David, I think, is agreeing with you. Oh, there we go. This one here saying that he's world class, shows his age is only a number. Yeah, it's so right. And then again, back to that CES thing, and I think we've said it before, and everyone knows, that it's just passing that down, passing the talent and the knowledge down to the people that we need to. So Bobby K, Perisic, best player, 9 all day.
You could give him a 9 had he maybe had a better first half, in my opinion. I think I would have
easily
given him a 9.
It? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole game. And he looked great in the second, but maybe if he had a more convincing first half, definitely would have given him a 9.
Yeah, agree. All right, let's move on to Hojbjerg, 6 and a 6. I think he was man of the match, wasn't he, yesterday? From
according to Spurs, I believe so.
I don't know if I necessarily agreed with that personally. I think for me it was definitely a game of two halves for him as well. With everyone pretty much. I don't necessarily think he should have got man of the match, and that might be a bit biased. But I think it's just the fact that the first half for him wasn't great, I don't think. I really don't think he played that well in that first half. I know, obviously, second half was great. I think he picked up a yellow pretty early on in the first half, didn't he? But he was defensively sound, and then obviously, in the second half, there was that awesome solo run that he did, and there was an attempt at goal. But I don't think it was necessarily warranted for man of the match personally for me. It was a mixed game. I think he did well with what he was up against, but I think for me, I think it's a 6 really for me.
Yeah, similar to Emerson.
Goal is not right, by the way.
That was the Chelsea, the Chelsea version.
Apologies, guys. He did not score a goal.
No, but similar to Chelsea, maybe just to bounce off that, seeing that, similar to Chelsea, he had a great second half performance, and turned it right around, and was one of the, while being one of the least convincing in the first half, was somehow then one of the best players in the second half. He did that against Chelsea, and I think he sort of did that against Wolves again, where he didn't look too great in the first half, and then all of a sudden in the second half, you would say, Hojbjerg was probably one of the better players, in the second half, because he was playing, again, also similar to Chelsea, a lot more kind of passes that were breaking the lines. Like you said, you found him, a bit further forward and able to play, kind of passes through the middle instead of just spraying it sideways. He was able to actually find more kind of progressive, kind of incisive passes to, kind of get our forwards sort of going. And, I think it showed, in the stats that I believe, the Spurs, kind of website put up, with his passing accuracy, as well as what, he did with the ball creatively. So you kind of have to look at, again, a player that had a pretty average first half, if not mediocre first half, and then turned it around to be one of the better players in the second half. And I don't know, I want Hojbjerg to make it more of a full 90. But we'll get
Yeah.
on to the other midfielder. But I think it's a bit of a similar story, too. We're like pretty mediocre in the first half, turned it around sort of in the second half. But I don't know. I guess we'll get on to it. But I actually think Højbjerg was better in the second half personally than I think Bentancur was in the second half.
Yeah, and I think let's quickly move on to that because I think, yep, I think we've done the same thing here as well. And I don't think a lot of people probably agree with this, Jack, based on some of the stats that have come out. But personally, I'm thinking the same as you. I think first half I didn't even see much at all with Bentancur.
Yeah.
Very, very uneventful from what I could see. Wasn't great, but definitely improved in the second, like you said. And he definitely was defending well. Like I could definitely see that. And he coped really well with the press that we're up against. But yeah, nothing really of note to say about that first half performance. I think he did, like you said, improve in the second, but nothing great. And maybe I've missed something there, but I think for me it wasn't. Overall, it was a 6 from both the midfielders yesterday.
Like I said, I didn't have the benefit of, having the full, big screen monitor and, all the stats, next to me, like David, says. I didn't get that benefit. I was kind of watching it on a moving car on a motorway, going 80 miles an hour. So it was, kind of, it wasn't the best viewing experience. But from what I did see, with Bentancur, I just genuinely think, there's a bit of bias that comes into this, Jodi, where if you've noticed, Højbjerg drops really deep in the first half and sits right next to Eric Dyer to pick up the ball. Ben Davies then pushes out further wider instead of standing next to Dyer and just having it kind of be like a flat back three in possession. He actually pushes Davies out wider by dropping deep, Højbjerg, and sort of kind of sits next to Dyer to pick up the ball, almost something very Harry Winks, kind of ask, you could say, and kind of dropping
don't
deep,
put these two in the same conversation.
But to drop really close to the center back and pick up the ball. And then when Højbjerg was picking up the ball in these areas, he wasn't really, looking for that hero pass, as I like to say. People often are expecting Højbjerg to make this Glenn Hoddle like hero pass, from these positions. It's like, that's not his job. His job is actually pick up these passes and be able to spray it a bit more efficiently than maybe, let's say, a Davies would from that position, or even an Eric Dyer would from that position. Bentancur, actually, in my opinion, is the one that's actually sitting practically alone since Højbjerg dropped. Bentancur is kind of sitting alone and kind of willing to pick up the ball and turn since he's so lovely on his feet. He can pick up the ball and sort of turn. But when you are the only midfielder in there, you do kind of get locked out a lot. You do kind of get easily closed down. And I feel like Bentancur, only until the second half, when he was given that ability to turn and look upfield, and kind of get us going a bit more, did he look better? But I just feel like the way that Conte's system is being built, I guess, as I'm trying to say, the way that his team builds out from the back, it makes Bentancur look better than Højbjerg, to the common eye, I think, or not even the common eye. What I mean to say is, sort of Højbjerg is doing kind of the part that maybe goes under the radar, and then Bentancur is doing the part that looks really flashy, when in fact it's Højbjerg that's kind of doing, you could say, a bit of the dirty work of kind of just dropping deep and just, picking out passes.
Yeah, no, I think that's all very that all sounds pretty good. What do you think about, like there was a lot of calls for bringing Basuma on at halftime.
I think you
What
kind
were
of drop
your
one of
kind
them
of
for the next one. I think you drop
yeah,
one of them. I'm kind of, like I said,
do you-
professional Højbjerg apologist, but I'd be happy
yeah.
to see one of them go to the bench, for the next one. Preferably Bentancur, but maybe
Mm.
Højbjerg.
Do you not think, like, and I'm sure we'll get onto stuff later, but what are your thoughts on the fact that he didn't switch it up at half time? Do you think it was the fact, and personally for me, it's that like Conte has a system, and he has a well-drilled system, and the players all need to know their place and what they're doing. And personally, I don't necessarily think the new players know that yet. And do you think that plays a factor in that? We weren't chasing the point; we were one up. Um, is that a kind of thing
Yeah,
that
I
we
think that's a good theory. My kind of sort of theory is, at least maybe personal to Højbjerg, for why he's had such good second half performances, and like that's maybe why you might keep Højbjerg, is because he, and at least in my
Mm,
opinion, had a better second half against Chelsea than Bentancur did, and he had a better second half, at least personally in my opinion, against Wolves.
Yeah.
But that one I think is more up for debate. But I don't think the one against Chelsea is really up for debate.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it that sort of way, maybe it shows that Højbjerg maybe likes those halftime, kind of bollockings, from Conte maybe a bit more,
Yeah.
or maybe he receives them a bit better. We know that he was a
Mhm.
big Jose fan. We know Højbjerg loves
Yeah.
running through the wall. He probably enjoys, maybe being yelled at by Conte, and perhaps that's why Conte keeps him on the pitch, because he knows that
Yeah.
Højbjerg can turn it around in the second half if he's playing poor. Even if he
Yeah.
is playing poor, he knows that maybe he trusts that Højbjerg can turn it
Trust the process.
around. Maybe.
All right, let's move on to Dejan Kulusevski. Kulu. I can see a theme with you there, Jack.
Yeah.
You want to go first? I've gone first the last few
Yeah, I don't
times.
really know how much I have to say here. I just didn't think he had as good of a game, in this one. I thought against
Mhm,
Chelsea, he was sort of kind of locked out by Kukurea a few times, and
mhm.
Koulibaly gave him some trouble. I wanted him to kind of tear apart Wolves, which I thought would be kind of an easier assignment, kind of for him. I feel like he didn't live up to those expectations, but we set
Yeah.
very high expectations for Kulusevski.
Mhm.
Just kind of thought he wasn't as good as I know he can be. So I'm kind of just, giving him a six. And I don't think he created as much as I know he also can, which is why I'm
Yeah.
kind of giving him a six. I think he wasn't poor by any means. I think like maybe a six looks kind of harsh when I think about it. But like I said, that's why I love picking between the whole
Yeah.
numbers, because, it
My
makes
first
me maybe
decimal's
look a
coming up
lot
here. You'll
makes me
notice
look a
my
lot
first
meaner, a
decimal.
lot nicer, however you look at it, makes me
And
look
this is
meaner and
why,
nicer. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, this is the decimals coming in here, Jack, because I don't know if he warranted a 7, but I felt like a 6 might have been a bit too harsh. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. I think he was almost absent for me in the first half. Again, like with it's a constant theme, the guys didn't play well. We know that. I do think in that first half he should have been trying to create more chances when like Kane and Son were sort of pinned down there, and he wasn't doing that for me. I think obviously there was a really silly foul. I think around the 30th minute mark
Yes,
for
I also
him.
remember that.
So yeah, that wasn't great for him. But I think, yeah, talking about that dressing room thing for me, I think he really got the message in the second half. We all saw like it was a much better performance from him in the second half. Like I think he ended up being like one of the main threats, obviously in the front
Yep.
three. Some really nice fancy little runs and like little it was
Yeah.
it was awesome to watch. Like I was like, oh, this is why I love this guy so much. Created chances for both Son and Kane, I think, in the second half. So yeah, I don't know. I think it definitely was a tale of two halves for Kulu. And that's what I'd hoped at halftime. I was thinking like I really hope he comes out in this second half and does what he did, and he did. So yeah, 6.5. I think second half was much better than what we've seen.
Yeah. Well summarized.
So yeah, what are people saying? Bobby K, a 6 for Kulu, agreeing with you, Jack. Didn't provide too much. Again, marked out, and he didn't get into space at all. Lack of pace is showing big time. Yep. Irish Hotspur, 7 Kulu sexy, done a lot of running with the ball, carrying the ball. I think was one of the brightest sparks. Yep. I think you're agreeing with what I said there, David. And David Clark is saying when the team doesn't press high as a unit, then the front three will look sterile. Yes, 100% agree with that.
I'll just say quickly, I don't think Kulusevski needs the pace. Like he just
Mm,
doesn't. In fact, what he benefits from is actually being a winger that doesn't
solo.
have pace.
Yeah.
Nowadays, so many defenders just come up against wingers that rely on pace, and
Hmm.
he's one that relies on just his touch, his intelligence, as well as just his strength. Like on the watch alongs, I always say, the weight room. I feel like Kulusevski shows a lot of people the weight room with how he takes it past people. And so, in fact, I would say he doesn't need the pace. It actually is what makes him the player that he is that he doesn't have pace. At least that's my opinion.
No, I agree. And I think is David agreeing with you here? Midfielders and forwards in the first half were victims of how slow pedestrian and limited
Mm,
passing out from the back. Okay, so that's, yeah. Agree, David. Agree. Right. Let us move on to Harry Kane. Did I get that right? A goal and a yellow. Yep, I did. 7 and a 7.5. You want to go with this one? You
I
want me
feel
to
like Harry Kane actually was good this game, but he just didn't
Yeah.
get the opportunities to maybe get, a
Yeah.
lot of moments. Even like
Yeah.
at the half chances, the quarter chances that he was presented. I actually thought he did well with. There was even
Mhm.
that one where he somehow won that header and really made
Yep.
actually, the keeper scramble for it. And I was like, wow, well done, Harry. And he also
Yep.
looked dangerous from set pieces. He was giving Nathan Collins a lot to think about. And it was almost sort of like Sonny against Rob Holding, where it felt like
Yeah.
Nathan Collins was getting
Yeah.
so
Oh
obsessed with Harry
God.
Kane that he forgot about all the rest of the players.
Yeah.
And we gave Sonny a really high rating for that, mostly because
Yeah.
Sonny had an exceptional game. But I
Yeah.
think Harry Kane was doing something kind of similar to Nathan Collins. He was just making Nathan Collins just worry about him. There's that big
Mhm.
physical battle between them. He was getting in his head, a lot. And he sort
Yeah.
of forced him to make that mistake to lead to the goal. And I think, honestly, Nathan Collins probably deserved a red card, I think, one stage, or at
Yeah.
least a second yellow.
Mm.
Because of what Harry Kane was doing to him. So I would say a 7 from me, just because he tormented, one of their back line and was there to lose him for the goal. And was, I think, despite maybe not giving the best sort of service, I don't think Harry Kane was giving great service. It felt like whatever service he was given, he was doing pretty well with it.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. And like the guys are agreeing. So David Clark is saying Kane 6+1 for the goal is a 7. And then Kane 6 from Bobby K. Scoring brings into an 8, grinding in the goals and getting points. All that matters. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm thinking as well. Like I do rate people up when they get goals. Sorry. It is a little bit biased, but that's what I do. Assists and goals, you do, if it's all that matters, you got to get those points on the board. So I think for Harry, first half again, like
His hair was looking
tough.
good this
It
game.
was looking good, wasn't it?
It
It
was
was.
looking a lot better. And I used to say Emerson, sort of replaced, Harry Kane for best hair on the team. Harry
Yeah,
Kane's hair was looking the best that day. It actually was looking
it
nice.
was
It was
looking
looking
fresh.
nice.
It was looking really fresh. Yeah, it was a tough half. I mean, I think he was getting pinned down, like you said. It was really hard. I think for Kane and Son, I think really to do anything with that
Yeah.
midfield. I think there was some really nice moments in the second half. I think you spoke about those. I think the goal just after half time is why I've given him probably that extra. You don't do point 0.5, so I've given him a point 0.5. He deserves it, I think. We got the clean sheet, we got the goal, we got the points on the board, and I think that's all that matters at the end of the day. You look at a team like Wolves, they've got, like I said before, that really aggressive looking midfield, and I think, like I said, they can do some damage against teams this season. But in saying that, I think we're the team with the talent. We're the team that I think in that game, I don't think Wolves would have got any more than one goal if they
Yeah.
could have. I think we could have got 2, 3, 4 goals, because if you look at the talent that we've got on our pitch, we're the ones that should have won the game, and we did. And we went out there and we showed that we got it. So
Yeah.
and that was Kane that got it for us in the end, with Perisic. So I think, yeah, 7.5 all day long, Harry. Thank you. Jack, you're talking about Kane.
I just responded. I
Shane
think the reason
David
it
is
actually
sent
looked
you from
better.
Tesco to Harry. You got the strawberry scented extra shine lotion for it as well. Yeah, sorry, Jack. Is that about you then?
No,
Is
no,
it?
no, no. I think David thinks Harry Kane gets extra points because if the hair is looking good and if he scores goals, kind of like multiplies. I think together for an extra rating, and so I think that's why it explains the 9 rating from him. But I feel like it's just because the hair has grown in a bit more. I don't even
Yeah, it
know if
was a
it's
bit
the
too
new
short,
shine.
wasn't it? Like
Way too short, and
it
I think
just
it's
needed
grown
to.
in a bit now, and it's looking,
Yeah,
more proper. He was looking
yeah,
more. It's just looking more put together. He looked so old with
yeah,
his new haircut. He like made himself look older, I thought, and
yeah,
now he's looking a bit younger. He actually
yeah,
looked younger now that it's grown in. Now that it's grown in, he
yeah.
looks
No,
pretty
he's
young.
looking good, Harry. Looking good. Keep it up, buddy. All right, coming to Son. 5 and 5. Who's saying Son was a 3? David Clark. Son 3. These last 3 games has been woeful. I watched his body language and it was very worrying. Yeah, I just, yeah, I don't know.
Can we just say a quick parallel, Jody? And I want you to just go off on it because I say this
Yeah,
all the time.
go for it.
I feel like, by even that body language comment, isn't that so similar to what we were saying about Harry Kane last season and, the
It's
beginning of
very
it? It
similar.
just feels like Sonny is just going through the same thing Harry Kane might have been in a similar way, with his form and, his ability and it just mostly his form. He's just not at it, and not really feeling himself. And
Yeah,
we didn't really show Harry Kane any sort of patience, any sort of,
No.
free will, any sort of kindness at all. We were pretty harsh to Harry Kane when he
Kane
was
was getting
going through that
fours,
tough period.
3s and
And it
4s, I
feels
think.
like we're going to do the same to Sonny. I don't know about you, but it
Yeah.
feels like we might do the same to Sonny. We might be a bit too
Yeah.
harsh on him. And
I
we won't let him go through this bad period like we did. We didn't let Harry
yeah,
Kane go through a bad period, and I'm worried we're not going to let Sonny go through a bad period.
I don't yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, no, he hasn't been performing like we would expect Son to be performing, and I know we've had these conversations last season. Son went through a patch kind of like quarter of the way through the season last season. Everybody was saying, Son's having a terrible time and he's not performing. He doesn't look like he wants to be there. Is he tired? Is he injured? All that kind of stuff. And he goes and bangs out like what he did last season. And I think we've got to remember what he did for us last season. And this isn't coming from a place of, I think everybody here knows he's my favorite player, and I'm not going to deny that he is. And I'm not trying to I think he performed pretty terribly in the last 3 games. I agree with everybody there. But I think we just have to try and have a bit of patience with him and just remember, like, he'll be there. Like, he'll come good. Like, it's Son. How can he not? Like, he
Yeah,
bangs out goals left, right, and center. He could be tired. I don't know what it is with him at the moment, but I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think he'll come good, and we just have to have a little bit of patience from me,
agreed.
really.
Agreed. I just think it's so similar to the Harry Kane situation last season, where Harry Kane was not the player like you said that we know he can be. He wasn't playing to the levels that we know Harry Kane can. We started saying, like, oh, is it because of this? Is it because of that? And we were just being, pretty harsh to him. And at one stage we were saying, like, oh, well, it's because Harry Kane doesn't have pace, and things like that. Oh, it's because, he's, losing it. It's because he's getting old. It's because of the ankles. And just felt like
Mm,
we were being really unkind. I think
yeah.
you're allowed to say Harry Kane had a bad game like we were last season, but we
Mhm.
started getting way too harsh about it where we weren't recognizing that there is a world-class player in there.
Yeah.
And with Sun, it feels like we're doing something similar here. I don't think we
Mhm.
are yet. I think we were really harsh on Harry Kane right away last season,
Yeah.
but I'm worried that something similar might happen with Sonny here, where it's
Yeah.
like we then start criticizing him for things that are kind of like, come on, like that's, over the line, that's over the top. And I
Mhm.
think he's been having really poor games. I think you would be a bit, biased to say he hasn't had poor games. He has had
Yeah.
poor games, but
Yeah.
like Harry Kane, who turned it around last season, I'm
Yeah.
not worried. Like I'm not
Yeah.
worried he's gonna
No,
turn it around.
he'll turn
Yeah,
it around at Son, and I think a lot of from what I've seen, there's been a lot of calls about taking him off at halftime and stuff like that. But we've got to remember the kind of player he is, and he could just score a goal for us. He's you don't take a player like that off. Personally, for me, I don't know. That's just my opinion, and I just think that he does have it in him, and we just all got to get behind him, and let's all
David's kind
just
of theory right there is kind of interesting. I have thought about that. Like maybe Sonny is dealing with that intense training and
yeah.
everything. Like
Oh,
perhaps it is
David,
like
yeah,
it's
Clark,
just worn him down a
yeah,
bit, and he'll get into
yeah.
it and he'll get ready, and just might take a few games. It's an interesting theory, David.
And I think it was Kane and Son. I don't think have had enough as much preseason time either. I think Son smashed it out in the internationals before the game as well. Like, this guy hasn't had much of a break, I don't think, from what I can see. And I think most of us have probably seen what his dad's like. Big up to Son's dad if you're watching. But he's a hard guy. Like, he trains Son really, really aggressively, and he hasn't had
He's
much
not
of a
even his
break.
own harshest critic.
So
He's not even his own harshest critic, his dad is. Yeah.
Juice nuts, love Son, but we need to be ruthless. He needs to be benched for
Richie did look
Richarlison.
good. There's so many times that,
He's a
like I said,
nutmeg.
I was in
Oh
the
my.
car. I was in the car full of people. Jody, all these people. They were all my family members. They were dropping me off, chatting away, about the trip and all this stuff. And I had my headphones plugged in. And the moment Richie came on, probably 6 or 7 times, I was just saying, "Go on, Richie. Go on, Richie. Yes, Richie." It was just. I thought he was actually great that game. I really did.
I thought he was good. I think he's going to do some good things for us. And just to have someone like that to bring off, yeah, I'm very excited to see what Richarlison does for us. So we're not going to write subs today, guys, but there was a lot to say about Richarlison, but we don't have enough time. So, Kevin saying, "Yep, dropped Sonny." Oh dear, Son.
Yeah, there's that argument. Now that we have there is that argument now that we have the quality, options off the bench.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
but before with Harry Kane, we were saying like, what was it like? Put Lucas up top, put
We
Steven
didn't have any
Bergwijn up.
options then, did we?
But we were still, a lot of people were still suggesting, put Steven Bergwijn up top, because he has
Yeah,
pace and etc.
yeah.
And I just hope that sort of line of questioning and logic and kind of, in my opinion, kind of unfair kind of harshness doesn't happen to Sonny. I really hope it doesn't.
No, I agree. I agree. Time will tell. I know Conte. I think Conte knows what he's doing, guys. I hope. I hope.
Shows. I think it has shown so far. He knows what he's
I hope
doing.
he does. But anyway, right. We're gonna move on to crime of the week, Jack. Crime of the week. So there was nobody hit me up. Guys, you gotta hit me up. When there's a crime, if you got a crime of the week, you gotta let me know because I didn't really get many nominations this week, unfortunately. But what I did get, unfortunately, it was a nomination from the fan base, the Spurs fan base. A couple of things there. I think one was around Sanchez not getting enough credit to start ahead of Romero. I think not the whole fan base. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't any of you guys. But there was a nomination put in for some people saying that potentially Sanchez should have got a bit more credit for for what he's up against. I know all of us were very upset to see the Romero injury, and I think some people probably weren't that nice to having Sanchez on there, and he did a good job for us. So yeah. Sanchez, well done to you. And the people who were not that impressed, maybe you learned a lesson. I don't know. I think there was another nomination as well, and I didn't really want to put that out there, but it was also around the horrible occurrence of racism that happened. It was directed at Son after the Chelsea game. So I think some people were saying that the club haven't made a statement about it, and potentially they should be nominated for Crime of the Week. However, I don't know if there was anything. I haven't seen anything, but I don't want to put them in jail just in case there has been something. So
I don't know. I would give Spurs a break here. I think Spurs have often been the victims in these sort of kind of, historically, we have been the victims in these sort of kind of incidents, as well as even in the modern era. I think we've been kind of victims of these sort of incidents. And Chelsea, if you ask me, have been often the perpetrators of these sort of incidents.
And to be fair to them, they did come out.
I think
this
the crime
week.
falls on them. It's not something I was very surprised by, which is a sad thing to say when it comes to Chelsea. I think they've been known for these sort of incidents, or infamous for these sort of incidents.
Yeah, definitely. It's really sad, I think, to see stuff like this. I mean, it always happens, but I think to still see this stuff happening in a sport that all of us love, like racism, discrimination of any kind, I don't think, none of it should be tolerated. It's a game for everybody. It's a game that we all love, and it's really sad to see that this kind of stuff still happening. So, but yeah, so that was a crime this week. Jack, any comments on that? Is there anything else that you would nominate? I see David Clark in capitals here. You're saying crime of the week is wrapping your sweaty hand around somebody and not letting go. Yep.
What is the? Yeah, it seems like Thomas Tuchel is is very big on eye contact. Clearly, but Conte being maybe a shorter man,
Spurs crime.
having to look up so high to the dangly weird, wiry scarecrow Thomas Tuchel, probably not the most. I don't know, not the most pleasing face to stare into when looking at people in the eye. I also even have a slight kind of eye issue where sometimes I have a bit of a wandering kind of lazy eye from time to time, and I sympathize with Conte. It's not always easy to look people in the eye while talking to them, while shaking their hand. It's kind of three things you're doing at once: shaking their hand while looking them in the eye, while talking to them. A lot of things at once.
He was the bigger man. I don't think Tuchel would have put his hand out and shook Conte's hand in the end. And then obviously there was the bias, I think, from Tuchel, who didn't do it to someone else during another episode as well. So there was some bias there for Tuchel. And Conte was on the sidelines, so he didn't get the bigger fine. Conte, I think, was in the right from all of us. So yeah, good on you, Conte. Good on you. And it was just awesome to see, the fighting for the club and what he does there. Tuchel's cheap Chelsea Cup. Yeah, David. Right. So that is going to do us this week, David. We have Nottingham Forest on Sunday. What your thoughts? Is Spence going to make an appearance for this one? Do you think?
You know what? I feel like Emerson. I think Emerson hasn't really done anything too wrong, but I would like to see something different, just for this particular game, in Jed Spence. I wouldn't put Matt Doherty ahead of Emerson yet. I feel like Emerson has
Interesting.
shown what
Yeah.
Matt Doherty doesn't have. He has shown that Matt Doherty doesn't have any pace, and he
Hmm.
has shown that he is able to, cover more ground, up and down than Matt Doherty can. Whereas with Spence, can't really say the same thing. He's another very young, athletic sort of player, and is a good
Hmm.
dribbler by what we know as well, with the way he likes to take on players. Coming up against his former side
Yeah.
could be an
Well,
interesting
that's
one. Then again, though, are we away from home, I believe, for this?
yeah. We are. We are.
So is it better that, he play them at our own stadium, or is it better that he play them at their stadium? That's a tough one, because who knows? He might get haunted by, the affair coming up against, the former side. I'm not sure. Could be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because I personally think he might get loaned out. So I'm just thinking if he's still with us, is he going to play kind of this game just because of the history and
Mm.
the what he's got? But I don't know. I guess we'll see. But what are you thinking in terms of scoring? We're going to take that one out. Hopefully, you can never tell really.
Nottingham
Can't be
Forest.
too confident.
Forest, they did look good, recently in their most recent game, but I feel like, I don't know, they seem like a sort of team that could maybe open themselves up a bit too much against the likes of us. I know we'd be coming up against another similar back five system. We have struggled, I guess, against Chelsea and Wolves in some ways, coming up against similar back fives, but I kind of feel like the way Forest is kind of set up, I don't know. I feel like it might be tailor made, for us to actually have a bit of an easier game for some reason. But I don't know. They are a hardworking team. They have lots of new players. They have
Yeah.
tricky players as well, in Lingard
Hmm.
and whatnot. And I think honestly, that Taiwo Awoniyi missed an absolute sitter, I think,
Hmm.
recently. But he's looked
Yeah.
good. He looked strong. He looked powerful. They do look good, but I feel like maybe this might be an easier game for us. I don't know why I'm thinking
I
that,
hope
but
so. I
I'm
hope
like
so.
2-0 is really, I'm not saying 3-0 or anything. I'm just saying
Oh,
2
no, no,
0
no.
No, 2-0.
Yeah, I don't think any game's an easy game, and I think when you're coming up against these teams who are new to the Prem, like, you can't really tell. Like, I think that they are
You're
gonna
right.
give us a show, especially in the first, when they're still all guns blazing and they have so much to prove. So I think they could show us what they're there for. I think they drew to Everton yesterday, I think, didn't they? And they beat West Ham. So, like, man,
No, they're
there's
not to
something
be,
about
yeah, not to be underestimated.
them.
Absolutely right.
She's saying Forest 1, Spurs 2. Yeah, I think 2-1 is a good shout.
Not bad
Yeah, I
there.
don't want to give out any predictions. So yeah, so just a shout out to everybody that we had. Thank you so much to everybody for watching us and being here with us and all your comments and everything this evening. So just going to give a shout out to who we had. So we got Sean Hurl, we had Ellie. Thank you so much, Ellie. Love to see you. Juice Nuts. Love you, Juice Nuts. Love you being here. Bobby K. We got Kevin Murray again, as always. Thank you, Kevin. And David. Love to see you here. David Clark and David Irish Hotspur. Both of you. Thank you guys for being here. Bobby K. We had lots and lots of you today. So thank you guys. We had NS Sports TV. Thank you again for being here. Love to see you. Don't want to miss anybody, but I think that might be it. Simon Cohen. Thank you, Simon. And anybody else I missed, I'm so sorry, but there's so many of you in this evening, and I really, really appreciate you guys being here. Craig Bowler, thank you, Craig. So yeah, I think that's going to do us this evening, Jack. Thank you again so much for being here. I always love having you here.
Thank you.
Um, Anything you want to promote or plug or talk about before we wrap up?
I would say just big up Dave. He was able to hold down the fort expertly, as we know he can, while I've been gone. But if you haven't, picked up David Harris, the Irish Hotspur, please do. Did an
Yeah.
absolute fantastic job without me. And I know that he probably deserves, a day off, as well as, maybe a good pat on the back, from you, very kind folks. So that's what I would say. Plug David. And then, back to regular week, back to regular proceedings. Haven't done a flat cap video in a while. Not going to leak what it is, but don't worry. I do have a good list, a good bank vault of video ideas. It's just been kind of away from it all. So good to be back.
Nice. Yeah, good to see you back, Jack. And yeah, guys, obviously go check out Jack and David and Flat Cap Euro Talk and David David Irish Hotspur's channel as well. Those guys are doing some awesome stuff over there. We love to have them on here, and we love love what you guys do. Some really, really good stuff. Go and check them out. Please subscribe and really just enjoy their stuff because they do some awesome stuff. But yeah, from my end, you can catch me on Twitter at Spursy141. And yeah, again, thank you all so much for your support and everything that you do for us. We love all of you guys, and yeah, I think we're going to do that for this evening. So all I want to say now is come on, you Spurs.